Hi, hope you're well. What's today's date? December 19th, Tuesday, 2023. And I'm doing a film critique, criticism, video, full on ramble tonight. No, well, no, there will be music actually. I will be showing some records. Just wouldn't feel like my channel if I weren't showing records. So I will do that. But I'm talking about a movie tonight. I am talking about The Exorcist. And I have a lot to say about this movie. I'm going to try to keep this video at a reasonable length. I have a lot to say about this movie. This movie means a lot to me. Rather than, and I say this every time I know, but rather than recite things that already people already know, rather than talk about themes that we already know about, talk about just production tidbits and directorial tidbits and factoids that we all know about. I'm going to avoid all that. I'm going to try to talk about what my personal experience is with this movie. Obviously, this movie is 50 years old now. I've had a lot of time to watch this movie. I've seen it many times. I saw it at a very young age, and all I can really do that's going to be fresh is try to offer a perspective that is different than anyone else's. My personal experience with this film. I'm going to focus on that because we all know what The Exorcist is about. We all know who's in it. We know. So I'm gonna, as always, veer away from the stuff that we all know about because I don't know, that's boring. Videos that just tell you what you can read on Wikipedia, boring. Okay, I'm gonna give you my take on this. I'm gonna talk about the first time I saw it, the last time I saw it, and some times in between when I saw it, and then I'm gonna talk about all of my physical copies of this I have because I have maybe a couple of thousand physical movies in my collection, counting my old VHS tapes to my DVDs, to my Blu-rays, to my 4Ks, about 2,000 ish in my collection. I have more copies, physical copies of The Exorcist and all of its different versions and iterations than any other movie in my collection. So there are a few that are close, but I have, as far as I know, I have 8 physical versions of this movie. I'm only going to show 6 only. I'm 2 of them. I don't know where they are. They're old VHS tapes, and I'm just not going to pull those out. So, um, however, if my light changes, it's because I have my computer in front of me and things are happening on my computer screen. I'm going to turn this off. As you know, when I do these videos, I talk off the top of my head. I'm not reading notes. I'm not pulling shit up. I'm not reciting things. You'll see that on the vast majority of videos you watch on YouTube. I think that's boring. I'd rather just talk off the top of my head, and I have a lot to say about The Exorcist. I will inevitably leave stuff out. That's okay. I don't want to hear any corrections or things that I forgot to mention. Any comments like that, I will remove. I'm not sitting here for hours and days at a time talking about this brilliant movie. I'm going to condense it. All right. So my journey with The Exorcist. So I saw The Exorcist, I think, and I'm sure this will raise a few eyebrows, and it probably should. I saw The Exorcist, I think, when I was 10 or 11 years old, and this was back in the early mid 80s. Sorry, I wish 90s, early mid 80s ish. I want to say 83, 84, or something like that. I was 10, 11 years old, something like that. And my parents were the first on the block to get a VCR. Try to imagine this. Back in the 80s, the early 80s, VCRs were like $500. They were these big behemoths. They were huge, massive machines, tanks, and they cost $500. This is in early 80s money, okay? 40 years ago. That was a hell of a lot of money. In fact, I can't believe my parents agreed to get one. But Uh, they got one. I want to say in 81 or 82, they brought a VCR home. And that was like my whole life changed forever when they brought that VCR home. My parents have always been the kind of people that are very liberal. I don't mean that in a political sense. Oh, I mean that in a way where they let me experience art, but they always explain things to me to some degree. In my case, it was like, we're going to let you watch this movie, but understand it's make believe. This isn't real. None of this is real. And I lucked out, I think. I lucked out as a human being because I've never really thought any movie is real. I've always known it's fantasy. Having my parents tell me that was a big plus. I think that's missing, by the way, in a lot of societal discourse these days. You know, people want to ban things and they want to block things and they don't want us to see things. I think it starts at home with the parents. Your parents can decide when you're a kid how much you're going to be exposed to certain things. I think kids are exposed to rotten things freely, like Twitter and social media. I think that's way more disturbing than watching a movie. My personal experience and my personal opinion on that. Probably a different video though. My parents, when I was a kid, let me watch movies like The Exorcist. They were very clear, like, this is a fantasy, this isn't real. Here you go. And yeah, I think I was 9 or 10 when I saw The Exorcist for the first time. Rented it, brought it home, watched it, and it was life altering. I can't I don't necessarily even remember what I thought when I first saw it. It's been so long now. It's been, 40 years really since I saw it. But what I can remember is that I'd never seen anything like it even remotely before. It was just from another planet. It was this film that I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. And there were a lot of movies back then that I saw that were like that. I don't want to name them all. I'll end up doing videos on these movies I'm talking about. But The Exorcist stuck with me in a lot of ways. And as time has gone on and as I've gotten older, I'm going to be skipping around all over the time periods of my life here, but something I'm going to take a drink actually. You ever have that feeling when you feel like you're going to burp and it never comes? I just ate, so you know, if you smell something rotten, that's my breath or my ass shooting fumes through the phone here. So, what I've learned about The Exorcist and what I appreciate about it so much is that I'm not a religious guy. I've never been religious. I was raised loosely Catholic, and I went to school, and I even went to CCD for a certain amount of time. Never felt the power of God in me at all. No faith, no religion. It's never meant a fucking thing to me. Never have I felt the pull of something bigger than me other than nature. I think for me personally, nature is the only God that we need. It's the only God that we need to worship is our surroundings and what we can see, feel, and touch. I'm a very empirical person, and never more so than when it comes to faith. So even when I was a kid, I never had these feelings of religion or faith. But when I watched The Exorcist, it really moved me. And as I get older and I get more, solidified in my non-faithful stance, I still marvel at how powerful The Exorcist is to me. And I have to rethink it. And each time I see it, I feel like I feel a little different about it. And I think what I love about The Exorcist so much is, number one, it's not a horror movie. Exorcist is not a horror movie. Is it horrific and is it really hard to watch sometimes? Sure it is. But I don't think it's a horror movie at its heart. It's a drama. It's a movie about people having to deal with their inner demons. That's how I've always seen it. People will see this any way they want to see it. That's why The Exorcist is so brilliant, I think, is because you can see it from so many different views. If you are a religious person, you can watch The Exorcist and put it in that framework, and that's cool. For me personally, I think it's the demon is here's the demon, you can see it, but it's really about everyone else dealing with their own inner demons, particularly Father Karras, which I love. And especially, like I mentioned before, I was raised loosely Catholic, so that's another weird peripheral connection that I feel like I have with this movie. Um, for instance, for me, the most frightening parts of The Exorcist are with Karras and his mother. The guilt that he feels, the tremendous guilt. His mother dies. He puts her in a home because he can't afford to do anything else with her. Then she dies. The tremendous guilt this man is racked with. I mean, it shakes his very core. He's questioning his faith. He's telling his fellow, priests, like, I don't think I got this anymore. I don't have faith anymore. I can't do this. I'm done. And then on top of that, he's got Pazuzu fucking with his mind. He's dreaming, and like one of the best scenes in the movie, I think, is when his mother is ascending the subway staircase, and then the demon face flashes, and then she goes back down the staircase, never to be reached again, into this blackness. You can take that any way you want. You can say that she's coming up to taunt him and then going back down into hell, or the demons fucking with him and doing all those things too. That could be true, but it's a freaky scene. For me, the hard part of this movie is the guilt this man feels. Another spooky scene in this movie I think is really spooky is when he goes into the room and he looks at the bed and he sees his mother all tied up on the bed with a spotlight shining on her. By the way, the lighting in that scene is so brilliant. Like, she's lit up, but then her face is kind of dark. Like, she's got shadows on her eyes and her face. Just the lighting was impeccable in this movie. A beautiful movie. Um, and that gets into the production side of things, obviously. But going back to the movie itself, what works for me so well is the fact that, to me, I think the demon represents guilt. That's how I've always watched this movie. Not so much when I was a kid. I think when I was a kid, I didn't really understand these concepts, but I could see what was happening on screen. I had a visceral reaction to this. But as I've gotten older, I think what I've really appreciated about this movie is I don't think there's a better movie out there when it comes to trying to get your mind wrapped around the things that make us feel guilty about our own personal lives. We all have guilt to some extent, and none of us want to talk about it. This is one of the brilliant things about William Friedkin, I think, is he takes that, and he wasn't a God-fearing man. And I'll get to that in a minute, but he takes that concept and he rubs your nose in it. Like, we're going to deal with this guilt. We're dealing with this. We're going to do this. Now, going back to Friedkin, not being a God-fearing man, I think that's key. You have to have a non-religious person direct this movie, I think, for it to be so strong. You have to have someone who's neutral. It's absolutely paramount that you have this, because if you have a religious person, I mean, think about it. If you had Mel Gibson direct The Exorcist, what do you think you'd get? You know, you'd get a different movie, and maybe it would be good. Mel Gibson's a good director. I'm not taking anything away from him as a director or an actor. I mean, you can hate him personally all you want, but it doesn't change the fact he's talented. But that's another story. If he directed it, it would be different. But then if you had someone who was absolutely anti-religion in every way, it would be another movie altogether. I think Friedkin was just neutral. You needed an agnostic director, not atheist, but agnostic. I think that's why this movie works. Is Friedkin, he's not going to commit to either side. He might, if you trick him or convince him, he might fall into one way or the other. But you need that when it comes to this movie. I think that's why this movie works. And these comments I'm making remind me also of a scene, and I'll talk about this more when I pull up the physical copies of this movie. But one of the scenes that got cut from the movie originally was the scene when they're on the stairs. Marin and Karras are on the stairs, and Karras asks Marin, like, why this little girl? And Marin was like, well, I think the point is to make us despair, to reject the idea that God could love us. While that's a great scene in itself, I think Friedkin made the right choice to cut it out, the original version. Now, you can see that scene in the extended director's cut, whatever, but the director's cut really is the first theatrical cut. For me personally, my favorite version is the theatrical cut, and maybe that's because I've seen it going back to the 80s and I've seen it so many times, but I think the movie's better without that scene. It's a beautifully written scene. In fact, all of the scenes that Friedkin put in later for that version you've never seen are excellent in their own right. I think it offers some validation to the movie that it was missing. But I think that's what makes the theatrical cut perfect is it doesn't have that validation. It is not validating your thoughts. And I think that is something that's sorely lacking in film recently, in recent years. The idea that the director and the filmmakers are going to let you, the viewer, figure this out. It's not up to the director. He's already showing you. It's obvious. If for me, it's obvious when you watch this movie. Of course, that's what the demon Pazuzu is saying. He's saying like, yeah, how the hell could God love you when this happens? Of course, like you don't need somebody telling you this. But some people want that explained. I think William Peter Blatty was the one that talked him into that. He wrote that in the book and he wanted it in the movie. I personally agree with Friedkin. The movie's better without it. Let us figure this out. Let the viewer take this in with their own personal experience and work it out for themselves. That's why The Exorcist, the original cut, I think is the scariest movie that's ever been made. Is because it's not letting the viewer off the hook. That's what pretty much all horror movies do nowadays. It explains and it lets you off the hook, and it's very movies are very focused on not being ambiguous. The Exorcist is. It doesn't really offer any answers at the end. Karras is dead. Reagan doesn't really know what the fuck happened, and that's the end of the movie. We don't know where it goes. I mean, I guess we kind of do if you're going to count Exorcist 2, which was a total heap of steaming shit. I've tried to watch The Exorcist 2 over and over again. I've seen it maybe, well, not over and over. I've watched it 4 or 5 times in my life, and somehow it gets worse every time I watch it. I'm like, I'm missing something here. No, that movie's shit. It is what it is. I don't want to hear any arguments either. No, no, it's pretty. No, it is not good. It's shit. But anyway, that's another video. Uh, that is why the the first version, the theatrical version, the original version of The Exorcist is perfect as a horror movie for me. It is not explaining itself. It's not interested in that. It is not at all interested in dumbing down for the audience. And again, I think that's something that most, the vast majority of movies do in recent years. It is demanding a level of intelligence from its audience. And if you don't get it, too bad. Tough shit. That is what's brilliant about The Exorcist. You need to watch it a lot to get all of its intricacies, to get all of its delicate little details. You have to watch it multiple times. You've got to be strong enough to watch it. And maybe because I'm an atheist, I'm able to rewatch this movie over and over, and it doesn't really affect me. I never have nightmares. I never have dreams about movies I see. It just doesn't happen, so I'm lucky that way. I know a lot of people are that way, and it might be more difficult for them to get through a movie like The Exorcist multiple times. For me, it's easy because for me, The Exorcist is just a perfectly crafted film. Forget about the fact that she's masturbating with a crucifix and her head's spinning around and she's puking vomit and puking pea green soup, which is great, by the way. I love all that shit. But it's such a well done movie. Like you go into Reagan's room and, you know, and those of you who've watched all the special features and all the physical releases will know what I'm talking about. Like they needed breath. It needs to be cold in the room. So they're in that room and you see breath emanating from their mouths. The colors outside with the leaves and the fall colors. And I mean, it's just a beautifully made movie. Every little detail is thought about. The music's great. Friedkin was on top of his game with this movie. He didn't miss a single detail. A brilliant, brilliant piece of work in every way. It's a perfect movie. Love The Exorcist. I'm trying to think of some favorite scenes. Again, I think and I think I've talked about what I find is most fascinating about the theme of the movie. It's guilt. It's wrestling with something that we all have to wrestle with every single day of our lives. And the more that we live, the more guilt we'll probably feel. And something's going to expose itself where you have to deal with it. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And, real life doesn't let you up for error. And, generally that's what I love about movies and The Exorcist in general. It just doesn't do that. It's like just pounds ideas into you, pound, 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 pound until you can't take anymore. I love that. You're out of breath by the end of this movie, and the breath is emanating from our mouths too. But that detail with the breath coming out in that cold freezer room, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's just too many scenes to mention. Um, the scenes that got added into the extended version, again, I think they're all brilliant, but I don't know that they work. I can see why Friedkin took them out, like the spider walk. I saw in an interview where he was like, it was just too much. It was too much. Like Chris had just learned that her friend had died, and it's probably just dawning on her that Reagan killed him, and then Reagan comes down the stairs. It was too much. I mean, I could just see the audience, and this is 50 years ago too. Movies like this weren't made then, and they're not made now. That's what's so powerful about this movie. I still think this movie is far more intense than anything that's come after it in all of its 50 years. It was too much for the audience. I mean, it was just like this movie was just berating the audience. I can understand why audiences were shocked. It was filmed like a documentary too, and that's what Friedkin was. He was a documentarian. I think that's why Blatty wanted him. Obviously, he saw the French Connection and saw a style that he loved, but I think that's a huge reason why The Exorcist works is because it's filmed like it's real, and it doesn't matter what your faith is. I don't think. I mean, you can watch this movie and be so riveted by it, by what's going on, and all of its heavy messaging. It's just it's a beautiful movie, and the acting, of course, is amazing. Linda Blair's crazy good. Uh, Ellen Burstyn, I think, is one of the greatest actors of all time. Just phenomenal. Everything she's in. This is arguably her best role. Requiem for a Dream is really close. If you haven't seen Requiem for a Dream, holy shit, watch this movie. Her performance in that is the only performance I think she's ever given that rivals what she does in The Exorcist. Great fucking movie. Another intense performance. In fact, maybe Requiem's better now that I think about it. But those are the two titans of her performances. She's just a brilliant actor. Everything from the detective who shows up at the door to Jason Miller, the dude who plays Father Karras. They wanted initially the studio wanted a big actor like Jack Nicholson or Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman. I think they wanted all these guys, and Friedkin was like, "No, we need someone that we don't know. This movie needs to exist in the real world. We can't have actors that are so huge that it's going to distract the audience." So he threw Jason Miller in there, who I think was a playwright, right? He was a playwright. Perfect. What a phenomenal job he does. They did bring Max von Sydow in there. And this is an interesting thing too, maybe. I don't know, maybe it's boring, but when I was a kid, I'd never seen Max von Sydow in anything other than Flash Gordon. I saw Flash Gordon in the theater when I was a little tyke, and I remember being totally confused. Like, wait a minute, how can Max von Sydow look like that in Flash Gordon? That was 8 years later, but then look like that in The Exorcist. It didn't dawn on me that they did makeup on his face. But when you're a kid, it blew my mind. I was like, what? How is he so young here and so old in The Exorcist? Anyway, the makeup obviously is fantastic in The Exorcist. This is my experience with The Exorcist, though, and I hope that illustrates what this movie means to me. I saw it at a very young age, totally rocked my world. I honestly, and I don't know what this says about me as a person, but I've seen The Exorcist probably 100 times in my life. I have the whole movie memorized. I love this fucking movie for no other reason that it is one of the most riveting stories that I've ever seen in a movie. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not, I don't think. Sometimes a movie can be great regardless of what your beliefs are. And I think again, this is where society is lost. I think the a lot of younger society now, they have to have their own virtues reflected in movies. And I think The Exorcist is an example of where the movie doesn't give a shit what your virtues are. I'm telling a fucking story. You sit down and you accept it or not. And that just doesn't happen anymore, man. And The Exorcist is one of the greatest examples of that. If you tell a story well and you construct it well in a film, it doesn't matter. Put your own virtues to the side and just succumb to the art that is The Exorcist. It will pay dividends for the rest of your life. It has for me. I love this movie. I don't think there's a damn thing wrong with it. I think Friedkin put every single second that was important on the screen. He constructed it perfectly. He found the perfect actors. He found the perfect editor. He got the perfect music. And he hit a perfect home run with this movie. Brilliant movie, one of my all-time favorites. Again, I'm trying to think of some of my favorite. There's too many scenes to mention in terms of favorites, but my favorites tend to go with the mother stuff, and it's hard to watch that shit. You know, it's tough. This poor guy is going through hell. Forget about the demon. Forget about the demon. I don't think the scariest scenes are the demon. I think it's Father Karras and his mother. I think it's watching Father Marin's face when he realizes Pazuzu is possessing somebody. The scenes in that bedroom are freaky, but I think the scenes outside the bedroom are much freakier. If When I was younger, I think the scenes in the bedroom were obviously the freakiest. But as I get older and I've had experiences and relationships, I've found that the scenes outside the bedroom are the truly scary stuff. So that is what The Exorcist means to me. I hope you found that interesting. I will say more as I go through all my physical manifestations of this movie. I do have a lot more to say about this movie. There are just so many themes and great things to say and awesome stuff. I will try to do that. I'll just do that as I pull out the physical media here. Because you guys have been staring at just my face for what, 27 minutes now? That's long enough. So I'm going to start off, and I have opinions, if you haven't noticed. I have opinions about the physical copies of this 50th anniversary set. And not all of them are positive. In fact, very few are positive. Now, The Exorcist got released. This is the 50-year anniversary, y'all. Okay, and Friedkin died earlier this year. That sucks. We know that. The Exorcist is an American movie. We got bare bones releases for The Exorcist here in America in terms of 4K releases. Now, we've had some pretty mammoth sets that have come out before, and I have one, and I'm going to show it. I'm very proud of it. It's the pride and joy of my whole movie collection, I think. You can agree or disagree with me, but for me, I think it might be at the very top in terms of like physical coolness of my movie collection. But we got screwed. The American market got absolutely screwed when it came to physical media of the 4K release. I mean, you're doing the 4K release, that's one, and then you have the 50th anniversary, and you give us a bare bones release. It's an American movie. Give your American fans the huge set that they want. Didn't get it. What did we get? We got this shit remake made, written by Danny McBride, which, by the way, I think that got released today on 4K physical disc. I will not be buying that. I won't even be watching it. Sometimes, you just watch a movie, you just watch the trailer, and you're just like, yeah, no, that looks like shit. The only thing scary about this Exorcist remake is that people think it's scary. I can't even imagine anyone that would think this dumbass Danny McBride written remake of The Exorcist, or not even a remake, just a new Exorcist. It's just stupid. In fact, I think every Exorcist other than the original is pretty much shit. You can disagree with me all you want here. The only Exorcist movie I think is worth anything at all is Exorcist 3. I think The Exorcist 3 has some good moments. It was directed by Blatty himself. Brad Dourif is in it. That's reason enough to watch it. Brad Dourif is brilliant. George C. Scott. There are reasons to watch The Exorcist 3. I think it's a pretty decent movie. It's not perfect, but other than the original, it's the only Exorcist worth watching. Exorcist 2 is a joke. Awful. It has not aged. It was horrible when it first came out, and it's still horrible. Um, those Exorcists they put out like 15 or so years ago, the one that was directed by Rennie Harlan, and then the one by Paul Schrader, which oddly enough sucked. I thought I did not think it was good. I'm a big Paul Schrader fan, but I did not understand what he was doing with that movie. Those two movies were fucking garbage. I'm sorry, terrible movies. And this new one, I'm not even going to bother watching. I can tell it's shit. I have absolutely no reason to watch this movie. Also, I thought personally it just tarnished the legacy of the movie, the original. It came out 50 years ago. This is our 50th anniversary of it, and then we come out with this shit. You acquire Danny McBride to write a new Exorcist. I don't know. I don't understand anything anymore. Okay, I don't want to understand it. What I do want to understand is why the American market did not at least get this. This is, to my knowledge, the European special edition Exorcist 4K 50th anniversary. Now, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. I'm pretty sure this was European only. I had to buy it from Amazon UK, and I lucked out. I was checking, I kept checking. I knew this was coming. News came that this was coming back in June or something, or July. And so I was checking regularly for this because I knew it wouldn't last. And then I checked Amazon UK months ago, and there it was. And I think it only lasted very, very briefly, maybe an hour or so. And these were all gone. So I lucked out. I got this. I'm glad I did. It's a really cool set. Again, European only. Americans didn't get this. I'll show you the American versions of this. I'll show you what we got, which was next to nothing really. We got a 4K scan in terms of extras and bonuses and stuff, pretty much non-existent. The Europeans love this movie, and that's cool. It seems that the Europeans have more passion for this movie than us Americans do. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the religious fanaticism in this country is so intense that they don't think that there would be a big market for this. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm still surprised that this was not released in the United States. Only a couple thousand of this exist. I think the actual special features on the discs you get here is disappointing, but then the physical part is really cool. This is like leather bound. It feels leather bound to me. This is embossed, as is this. It's like a book. Looks like a book on your shelf. I like this. The one thing I didn't like, you see these little marks here. They glued this to it. This wraps around. I'll show you. I'm gonna get super detailed with my physical stuff because I love doing this. It wraps around like this, which is cool. But they glued this to this. So as I was taking it off and kind of taking the glue off, it left little marks here. You see that? Really? You're gonna glue this on here? I mean, this was sealed. What's the point of gluing this on here? You're already sealing it. I don't know. I don't understand the world sometimes. Anyway, I have these glue marks here. I've got to look at. Not the biggest deal in the world, but I don't know. It's kind of disappointing. Look at that. It mars it just a little bit. I mean, the whole point of this exercise, all of this shit, is physically it looks cool. It looks cool on your shelf, but oh no, there's some slobbery glue goober marks right there. I don't know. What are you gonna do, people? I have no clue. Maybe I'm just rambling. No one wants to hear this, but it annoys me. Stop gluing shit. What are you doing? Um, Here's the inside. Really cool. I mean, it's sturdy. It's like fits in your hand, and I've got pretty big hands, and this is like sturdy. It feels good. Feels good in your hand, man. You get your cross. Us atheists don't give a shit about this, but it looks cool. This is all embossed, by the way. The number, there's my number, the very unexciting number of 1670 out of 2000. I am number 1670. I really like this image. Very cool. Really like these covers though, and that will. I'll comment on. Oh, I just noticed. I didn't notice that before. There's a number right there. Really cool covers, I think. And I'm going to get to some of the other covers, which I do not approve of. Oh yeah, there's plenty of ranting on the way. Don't you worry. Those of you who like my ranting, and I know you're out there. Let's see. So I will do my best. Kind of awkward to show since my camera's elevated. It's kind of hard to show all this stuff. But you open this, it kind of opens up a flap, and then you get all your shit inside, and you have a quote. What an excellent day for an exorcism. This is embossed as well, and you get all your shit, and you have a little ribbon. You pull that up so it pulls everything else up. This is the discs. Very cool cover. The iconic original cover to the movie, The Exorcist, aka Max von Sydow. I think that's how you say his name, right? Is it Sydow? 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 I always thought it was Sydow. Who cares? He's a master. He's Ming the Merciless. He was in Strange Brew, The Seventh Seal. Fantastic, phenomenal actor. Here's the back. It's a tin case. It's a metal case. Classy stuff. You bust it open. There are 5 discs. All 5 are stuffed in here. This little 18, you Americans out there, this is the certificate it gets in Europe. Like we have PG-13, rated R. Europe has this. It's all age, numbers. We get letters, Europe gets numbers. There are 5 discs in total. There are 2 4K discs stacked on top of each other here. One disc is the theatrical version, the other one is the extended version. And then you get 3 Blu-rays over here. Extended version, theatrical version, and then the bonus features disc, all on Blu-rays here. So if you didn't have a 4K player, 4K TV, you could still get this and enjoy the movies. Get some new scans, and it does look good. I've tried this out and it looks good. Here's the next thing that comes with it. This leads me to this. Like, this is the cover of one of the US editions. I think this is a stupid cover. Why fuck with the cover? It has a cover. Sado standing in the light. That's the cover. Why? I don't know. It doesn't so much bother me when it's inside a box like this, but they use this as the cover of the US version, which I thought was just dumb. And I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, this nice glossy, thick paper here, cardstock paper, comes in a flap. You open up that flap, and out tumbles more stuff. You get some little lobby card action. You get, let me find some room for this here. Room is limited. There's that. I haven't really even looked at these yet, so this will be new for me too. Some Pazuzu getting his groove on. Didn't Pazuzu have a serpent for a cock? Am I misremembering that? I've read the book, and I seem to remember Pazuzu had a snake dick. Imagine if they showed that in the movie. That would have been cool. Or not. There's little Reagan looking evil. That looks like Friedkin here. Friedkin working with his crew. There he is again. Friedkin getting busy. What a good actor this guy did. Job this actor did. He is so good in that movie. What's his name? I don't know his name. Friedkin and little Reagan connecting, and yeah, this is one of those common things. Like, I won't go into it in detail, but Friedkin talks, like, they ask him how he got how he got Linda Blair to play this part and say all these awful things, and he's always said, I just treated it like a game, like it was fun, and that's how they did it. I mean, look at these two; they obviously had a great relationship. Um, and you hear Linda Blair talk about it now, and she doesn't seem all that scarred by it, so she seems to be doing just fine. More Friedkin and action cards. Really cool shots here. It's a different world, a different time. We've got a little poster. This was one of the cooler things I thought about this box set. It's very small, but very cool. Little poster of that original image. It's what the original posters look like when you get a black and white version. Very cool. I love this image. Just brilliant stuff. I forget the artist. Was it Magritte? I think I remember seeing an interview with Ellen Burstyn where he or she was mentioning um, Friedkin being inspired by Magritte, the artist Magritte, when he came up with this image. And you can see that Magritte had a lot of images, very stark, spooky images of stuff, spooky lighting, and he was excellent artist. I recommend any of you check out Magritte. And this, I don't know, it looks like a bookmark. I don't know. I would guess this is a bookmark. Yeah, I don't know. You get, and then lastly, in this little package, you get a booklet, very thin, but um, yeah, you get some writing, you get some of the same photos. It's nice glossy pictures. It's a full color. You get some black and white. Anyway, very cool. Um, this box set is more focused on physical goodies. In fact, very disappointing at the lack of new special features on the discs themselves. In fact, you don't get any, none that I see. I have a lot of the older versions, so I would know this, and there's just nothing new in terms of actual bonus features on the discs. So this is kind of hopefully you can see this, but you see this here? This folds out like so, and then you get the last tidbit, which is a Mark Kermode book. And yeah, I don't know. I This is part of the disappointment in general for this 50th anniversary. I like Mark Kermode. I like listening to his thoughts and his takes and his dissertations and critiques on movies. I think he's a really smart guy, and we all know he loves The Exorcist. In fact, isn't it his favorite movie? He uh, he hosted that documentary with the 25th anniversary. I think it's called The Fear of God. I'll show that in a minute. I have it. Really great documentary. He's the one that hosts it. He's a very smart fella, and he loves movies, and I think this is one of his favorites, if not his favorites. And he writes a book about it. Not a very big book, but it's here. Kind of cool. I will say though, we know how Mark Kermode feels about this, don't we? We've been listening to him chatter about this movie for decades. So it's while it's cool to have this personally, when I buy a collector's edition of a movie, I want to have stuff that's from the filmmakers themselves, from the directors, actors, editors, uh, sound people, people who do the soundtrack, the music people. I don't necessarily care about what critics think when I'm buying a box set. That's just really not what I'm interested in. I want to have stories and commentaries and behind the scenes tales. That's the kind of shit I like. While Mark Kermode is a great reviewer and a critiquer, I am not so interested in that being a selling point for this. So while I do enjoy having this and physically this is a really cool set, the actual bonus features you get is really stark. And I don't know that I would ever recommend picking this up. I'm sure it's worth a lot more money now. It's out of print and it's limited, so it's probably worth a lot of money. I don't know that I'd recommend it that highly. It's cool having it on 4K, but you can go buy a 4K disc just bare bones and get the same presentation visually for much cheaper. I think for a 50th anniversary set, Very disappointing. It's something, though. Europe got something. Us Americans, we got a big middle finger. That's what we got, in my opinion. So I'm going to dig back a little bit. Actually, wait a minute. No, I am going to show you, since I've been harping on these. This is what the American market got, okay? We got two different versions, both bare bones. We got this, which the dumbest cover you could possibly choose. What is this? In my opinion, this is supposed to tie in with this new Exorcist that came out. Oh, look, it's a demon face. Let's explain to the audience what's going on already. This drives me nuts. It's a stupid cover. It's reminiscent of the cover too for the new Exorcist. I think they're just trying to tie it all into each other. Thumbs down. Stupid cover. You already have a cover. Don't fuck with it. And there's the back. Same as this is what we got. This is the generic release for Americans. We get a 4K scan, and what was the other thing? We get extended director's cut, original theatrical version, commentary by Friedkin, commentary by William Peter Blatty, and an intro by Friedkin. That's all. You get two commentary tracks and a very brief intro. I mean, they could have at least ported over the all of the past bonus features. I mean, there's been plenty of bonus features from this movie over the years. You can't carry those over. I don't know. I guess they just assume like people are like me and they're collecting all these different versions. Um, but yeah, super disappointing. This is 50th anniversary, man. This is what we get. We get this. I will say it looks great. The scan's amazing. I played the 4K disc through my Xbox. What is it? Xbox One X, whatever the new Xbox is. Put that in there. Put this on Dolby Vision, and it looks fucking beautiful, man. It's never looked better. So it does look good. It's at least got that going for it. This is another American version that just came out. This is the Best Buy version. You get the tin. I bought it because I'm a sucker, because I have to have these. It's basically the same version as over here. You just get a tin, like a metal case that opens up, and you get the digital version. I don't know if I've redeemed this or not, so I'm going to cover that. Yeah. So super bare bones, same bonus features. You just get a slightly different cover if you buy it at Best Buy, which, by the way, another dumb cover. I don't know. Come on now. Would have been, Best Buy's released other versions of The Exorcist in the past with that original cover with the light shining down. So maybe they just thought they needed to do something new. I think these are goofy covers. I don't know. Sorry. When you're already showing the demon's face through Reagan on the cover, I mean, what surprises are going to be held for you if you've never seen the movie? I don't approve. All right. Now this, well, in addition to like this behemoth set that I've got over here that I'll show in a minute, this might be my favorite version of The Exorcist. This is a Blu-ray. When did this come out? I don't know. Let me look at this real quick. Sorry, guys. I want to see the year because I'm just curious. What year did this come out? 2010. So I've had this for 13 years. This has got some really nice stuff. It's loaded with bonus features. It is a Blu-ray, but most bonus features come on Blu-rays even with 4K discs anyway. So I keep all these things together so I can have all the bonus features. But this has the Fear of God on it. It's loaded. 3-part documentary, which was new, another new documentary that came out here in 2010. It's got the Fear of God, which came out. Or wait, does this have Fear of God? Maybe it doesn't. It does, yes. And that came out in 1998, which was the 25th anniversary. This is loaded. Raising Hell. It's got both versions. This is loaded. This is absolutely loaded. And it's like a book. Things are tumbling out of it already. You see it kind of opens up like a book. You've got this little thing written by William Friedkin talking about his movie. You open it up, it's got a book embedded in the disc right here. You get the movie. There's our friend Pazuzu, and yeah, you get a little book, pictures and stuff, and then you get the other disc. One's like the extended version, one's the director's cut. All the bonus features are plastered all over. I'm sure this is out of print. I would highly recommend you pick this up if you love this movie. Again, it's not 4K, but if you get a good upscaling machine, Blu-rays can look pretty fantastic. In my experience, I have a couple of 4K players that upscale Blu-rays really nicely. Will it look as good as a 4K? No, but it's still serviceable. I also have, as I mentioned before, I have an OLED. Um, I have a Sony Bravia OLED TV, and I'm telling you, if you if you have the ability to use Dolby Vision on your OLED 4K television, holy shit, beautiful. I watched The Exorcist and all my movies through Dolby Vision on my OLED, and it's something to see, man. I do not regret. That's one purchase I do not regret at all. This is another version I bought. I want to say this came out maybe I think this is the 40th anniversary. I think. So this came out a couple of years after that other one I just showed you. And this has even more extra features on it. By the way, none of these are on that big fat version I just showed you, that European version that just came out. None of these bonus features are there. I think some of these are on that European release, but not all of them. Like I think maybe Beyond Comprehension is on that one. The bonus features are sparing on that new European version, but I think they port a lot of these bonus features that were exclusive to this onto that one. I might be wrong about that. But you get new bonus features here. You get Beyond Comprehension, William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, Talk of the Devil, a never before seen documentary with Father Eugene Gallagher. Yeah, I think you get those on that new version. Anyway, you get a different cover. I like this cover actually. You get a shot of the stairs. Very cool. You get the little card in the back. There's Reagan floating. Pull these out. Yet another book. Lots of books being produced for this. There's Friedkin hanging out. More pictures, more words. Just talking about the movie. More than you could ever handle. And then another letter from Friedkin. That's definitely one of the cool things about all this is Friedkin definitely was all about talking about his movies. He did not hide from it. He loved being part of the discussion of The Exorcist, and that's what makes these collections fun, I think. Now, this is, well, I'll just show it because yeah, I love this release. It took a lot of work for me to get it at the time, and I'm very proud to own this. This Now this is a collector's set of a classic movie right here. This is the 25th anniversary. This came out in 1998. And I had to work to get this, man. I remember I had a friend who worked at Tower Records at the time. And we were close. We were buddies. And she knew I loved this movie. And I didn't know this was coming out. And she called me one day. She was working. And she was like, we got one of these in. You better come down and get it because employees and other people are lining up to get this. I know you want this. So if you want it, you better come down today and get it. And I did. I went down that very day and picked it up. I had to shuffle things around, but I did not want to miss out on getting this. And I'm glad because I've never seen another one like this. This is signed, it's numbered. I think only a few hundred of this ever came out, maybe 500. In fact, let me check I think it's 500 actually. I'll look on the inside. This was something that Warner Brothers did with a lot of movies then. They were doing this special edition series when DVDs were first starting to get popular in the late 90s. I have several of these box sets actually. I have one for Dirty Harry. I have one for Blade Runner. They all kind of had this black boxness with a photo in the middle. This is all embossed, gold foil embossed here. This is something that Warner Brothers did, but this is The Exorcist, which makes it more special. And this thing's huge. Like my fingers, I think from my palm to the tip of my finger is over 9 inches. That's how big this thing is. It's like a good foot long. This thing's big. And let me show you why it's big. So you pull it out. The computer keeps going dark. You pull it out. I got to be careful with this because it's stacked. It kind of pulls out like this. I'm going to pull it out flat because I don't want all the shit to fall out. But you pull this out like this, like a drawer. And the goodness starts. There's the box. And this was on the back. Was just promoting what was inside of it. Let you take a look. Look at this. This is a set. I mean, the only way to make this better would be to put a 4K, redo this and put a 4K in there, but whatever. I'll have to live with my DVD. That's what's in here. They also released this with a VHS cassette tape, a videotape. I'm glad I didn't get that. Although it would have been cool, I guess. But anyway, winner of 2 Oscars. DVD contains The Exorcist is presented and matted, blah, 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 blah. Before the movie, all the documentary produced by the BBC, The Fear of God. And the Fear of God was new at this time in 98. That's when that came out. So you keep opening this stuff up. You get this, a nice tall glossy book. Lots of words, lots of stuff to read. Unlike those little pamphlets that we saw in those other editions, you get a lot to read here. All of this is unique, by the way. All these books you see, none of this was reprinted or reused. It's all new. I mean, for these box sets, it's all unique. I shouldn't say new. But these are all different critiques and writings about the movie, pictures and stuff. Very cool. Nice little book there. Then you get these. You get some lobby cards. Still got them in their little wrapping here. Yeah, this video is almost an hour long. I was going to try to do it in under an hour, but I should have known I couldn't do it. Get your card. Another card. Very cool. And another card. You get the little image down there too, which is cool. And another card. Chris McNeil is she's over it. She's done. Here's another photo of her being done and done. A couple more. Really focusing on Father Merrin here. He is the Exorcist after all. Very cool shot there. So yeah, you get these lobby cards, which is a very, very cool touch, I've always thought. I've always really loved this photo here. How can you not love Linda Blair? I mean, how fucking cute was she? She probably still is. I haven't seen her recently. How old would she be now? I guess she'd be in her mid-60s, right, at this point. Yeah, she was a little hottie. Now this, I have not taken out of its shrink wrap, and I probably should. But I wanted to preserve this. Look at that. Linda Blair signed this. Now, this was part of what made this set so limited. There were 500 of this, I think. Yes, 500. And she signed it. Sweet dreams, love, Linda Blair. Check that out. How cool is that? I've thought about taking it out of the shrink wrap, but I want to preserve this. I don't know if it matters, but... And you get a film negative here. Look at that. The film negative here is of this. They did this with all of these movies, too, these black box sets that they put out. This isn't unique to just The Exorcist. They did this with all the other sets like Blade Runner and Dirty Harry and all that stuff. But I thought, how cool is that? this automatically makes this the coolest physical edition of this you could possibly buy. This is a certificate of authenticity. I always love these. You know, here's a certificate of authenticity. You must be able to prove that your nerdy little box set is true and real and totally legitimate. But whatever, it is what it is. I remember I had to go to a website at the time. I bought this and then I got home and it was like, if you'd like this, you need to go to our website and register, your number and we'll mail you this. And I did. So it makes it even more complete. I have my little certificate. Let's see. Certificate of Authenticity, The Exorcist, limited edition deluxe collector set. William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, was originally released by Warner Brothers Studio in 1973. The Exorcist limited edition collector set contained the following items: DVD, lobby cards originally produced for the set, the Cenotype CD soundtrack book. Each has been hand-signed and numbered in a limited edition by Linda Blair. The edition is strictly limited to 525 artist proofs. I don't know. I never know what that meant. 25 artist proofs. Don't have that. That would have been cool. Only 25. And then at the very bottom, you get a CD soundtrack. And this is different. This doesn't have tubular bells on it. It's got some other cuts on here. Different cuts. I don't know that I've ever seen this CD sold separately. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. I don't know. And then at the very bottom, the cum shot, the movie itself. And this is the DVD. Back when DVDs were all the shit. Remember these cases too, like the little snap cases? You pull it out, it folds out. You put your fingerprints all over that, like I just did. Oops. So just another version. This is a really, really awesome version. I'm really happy to have this in my collection. I will always cherish this. I'm really happy to have this. One of my favorite movies. Oh, here's, okay. See, I saved everything. Here's the website. To receive your certificate. Why they didn't just put the certificate of authenticity in here, I don't know. But this was in here. I had to go to the website and register it, and then they sent it. So anyway, and you get a nice little velvet lined box on the side here. This is velvet. So that is my physical collection of The Exorcist. But wait, there's more. I never stop talking, y'all. I've got more to say. Oh yeah, right when you thought, does this guy ever shut up? Will this guy ever close his mouth? No! The answer is no, I won't. I have more to say. But first, let me take 25 minutes and try to finagle and finesse this back into its box. Take one more look at this. This is a fucking box set, okay? This, filled with shit and bonus features. Not so much this. This is still cool. It's different. It's cool, but it's not this. If this was a 4K, oh my God, how incredibly cool would that be? Now, how did this get in here? Well, I was listening to this earlier. Ralph and Florian. Great album. I put it on top of my Exorcist record, so there you go. This came out in 1973. Maybe that's when I was thinking of The Exorcist today. That came out in 73, and this came out in 73. Maybe I just was on a 1973 type mood. Great album. Underrated, by the way. I'm not going to veer off into a Kraftwerk forest right now, but this is a really underrated album. This is a great album. If you like Kraftwerk and you haven't really spent time with that album, you should. It's great. So, Exorcist soundtrack. Let me pull it out. This is something I've had, Jesus, I don't know, years. Probably one of the first records I ever bought. As you can tell, it's a promo. I still have its shrink wrap on. Obviously you get tubular bells on here. which we all know. Still has the original inner sleeve with it. This is like a generic Warner Brothers 70s inner sleeve type action. You get the generic Warner Brothers label. Great music on here. If you like sampling too, doesn't get much better than this. Awesome soundtrack. Just part of the whole experience. If you're gonna have a love affair with The Exorcist, as I have had over the years, you need to have the music too. It all goes with it. And that CD that came in that big box set is really cool too. I wish they'd put that out on wax. I don't think it's on vinyl, as far as I know. The original soundtrack. There it is. This, I don't normally buy reissues, but I just couldn't resist. This was something that Waxwork Records put out about a decade ago. Waxwork Records. I really like Waxwork. There are a couple of repress soundtrack companies that I really despise. Like Mondo is one. I can't stand Mondo. Their pressings are garbage and they have a snooty attitude about themselves. And I don't give Mondo any of my money. I like Waxwork though. They do a nice job. This is a really nice reissue. You get a cool cover, unique cover. I really like this cover. It's got like the nice matte finish to the cover, so you don't get your fingerprints all over it. Just really, really fine quality. Nice thick spine. You get a gatefold. You get a booklet. You get a cool looking record to go with it. You get a nice photo of Reagan floating on the inside. I was happy to have this. There is, you get this, one side of the gatefold. There's Pazuzu peeking in on us. How many of you have ever closed your eyes and seen this image in your head? It happens to even me. The dirtiest, most faithless piece of shit atheist you'll ever see, me. Sometimes I close my eyes and I see that image. How can you not? A couple of really cool images here. You get some writing. In fact, I think it's Friedkin. Yeah, more words from Friedkin, all unique. He wrote this for this soundtrack. What a nice guy he was. I was going to say that's what a nice guy he is. I guess he still is. He can be dead and still be a nice guy, right? All right, maybe I'm stretching the truth. And then this came out on different colored variants, but I got this one. I think this was the Pazuzu variant because, I don't know, look at that. How cool is that? I thought that looked really cool. And the saving grace, you get Pazuzu right there staring at you over and over as the record rotates on your turntable. Check that out. Gotta love that. We can't have enough Pazuzu in our lives. Pazuzu, you're an evil scumbag, but we still love you. You and your huge snake cock. Speaking of which, how good was Mercedes McCambridge when she was doing the voices? Friedkin said he got her all liquored up and smoking cigarettes to get her voice in that kind of fettle. She already had a deep, gravelly voice anyway, but then he got her all loaded and stoned on whatever to come up with that voice. Awesome stuff. Really, again, I don't buy a lot of reissue soundtracks. I have enough soundtracks, but I was happy to pick this up. And then to end it, I thought I'd just show this. This is something I picked up a few years ago, Late Night Tales. These guys will generally have an electronic type artist compile a bunch of electronic type tracks and do compilations. And their compilations are really good. Most of them are excellent. I have a lot of these. Bill Brewster did this one, and Bill Brewster's kind of a disco funk guy. He's a DJ and he's worked on radio and he's got impeccable taste in music, and he compiled a bunch of movie tracks and they put it out on 2 records on glow in the dark vinyl. This one is number 393 of 1,000, as you can see. And I was happy to pick this up. This has Tubular Bells on it, of course. But look what they chose for the cover. Out of all the songs they put on here, that's the cover. And you gotta love that. We get tracks from Manhattan, Barry Lyndon, Midnight Cowboy, Henry and June, Donnie Darko, The King and I, Platoon, Deer Hunter, Powakwazi. I had never heard of that movie. Brazil, my favorite movie. The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Shining, Jarhead, A Clockwork Orange, Being There, Shawshank Redemption, Exorcist, Kill Bill Volume 1, Halloween, Taxi Driver, Midnight Express, Shaft, Bullet, Blade Runner, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service. All the main cuts from those movies are right here on glow in the dark vinyl. And yes, this does glow in the dark. I can't show it to you. I wish I could. I'd have to turn out all the lights, and that would take like a half an hour. I'm not going to do this. But this does indeed glow in the dark. I've tested it. You get 2 records like this, and it's loaded with cuts, y'all. But I show this because of one simple reason that I just showed you, and I'm going to show you again. If my life depends on it, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get this back in the sleeve because of this cover. There you go. And there's my Exorcist video, all right? I love this movie. Hopefully after 70 minutes, I've been able to impart why I love this movie. This has been a long video. Thanks for hanging in there with me, man. I have a lot to say. I could sit here for another 70 minutes and then 70 minutes beyond that. This is a brilliant movie. I'm happy that the European market at least did this. Not the greatest release, in my opinion. Physically, it's cool, but special features are lacking. Not one special feature for its 50th anniversary. Not one new, unique special feature. Really? Really? I don't know. I'm underwhelmed with that. But this still exists. So as long as this movie continues to thrive and proliferate in our world, it'll be a good world indeed, because this is one of the most shining examples of why I love movies. Movies are storytelling, and if you can do it in a unique and fresh way, they will last forever, and never more so than this movie right here. God bless The Exorcist, and that's coming from an atheist. God bless The Exorcist, and God bless Pazuzu too. Thanks, Pazuzu, for giving us this fine storytelling of a classic movie. All is right in the world. Even if Pazuzu exists in it, we'll figure it out. All is right in the world. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.